To access system components that are inside the PC, you will need to remove the access panel. To remove the access panel, first loosen the thumb screw for the panel at the rear of the PC. Brace the bottom of the unit on the table and firmly slide the panel forward to disengage it from the PC. Lift the panel off of the PC. The access panel has two tabs on each inside edge of the panel that slide into slots on the chassis. The panel also has a locking loop that slides into a slot on the rear of the chassis. To reattach the panel, align the tabs near the open ends of their slots and the locking loop under the rear lip of the PC. Slide the panel to the rear of the unit until the rear edge of the panel is flush against the rear of the chassis. Tighten the captured thumb screw to secure the panel to the PC. To remove the 2.5-inch hard drive, first remove the access panel. Grasp the green pull tab on the combined power and data connector to disconnect the connector from the hard drive. Pull out on the metal release latch at the side of the drive cage while sliding the drive towards the rear of the PC. Lift the drive out of the cage and remove it from the unit. To install a new hard drive, detach the 4 Torx head shock-mounted screws from the old hard drive, 2 on each side, and install them on the new hard drive. If there is not a hard drive fan installed on the hard drive cage, make sure the thermal pad is correctly positioned on the hard drive cage. The 4 side screws on the hard drive align into 4 slots on the hard drive cage. To install the hard drive, pull out on the retaining latch, and then align the side screws into their slots on the drive cage. Slide the drive forward until the retaining latch locks the drive into place. Reattach the combined power and data connector to the drive. To remove the hard drive cage, first remove the access panel and the hard drive. Detach the 3 Torx head screws that secure the cage to the motherboard. Pull the cage partially out of the unit. Detach the hood sensor connector from the motherboard to fully remove the hard drive cage from the unit. To replace the hard drive cage, first reattach the hood sensor connector to the motherboard. Align the 3 screw holes on the cage over their standoffs on the motherboard. Replace the 3 extra long Torx head screws to secure the cage inside the unit. To remove the hard drive cable, first remove the access panel. Grasp the green pull tab on the combined power and data connector to disconnect the connector from the hard drive. Do not pull or yank the flat ribbon part of the cable. It may be easier to remove the hard drive before trying to access the motherboard connector. Pull up on the retaining latch for the flat ribbon end of the hard drive cable on the motherboard. Pull the hard drive cable out of the unit. To replace the hard drive cable, insert the flat ribbon cable into its motherboard port with the blue side facing the rear of the unit. Press down on the retaining latch to secure the cable. Replace the hard drive if it was removed for access to the motherboard connector. Reattach the combined power and data connector to the hard drive. To remove the hood sensor, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, and the hard drive cage. As part of removing the hard drive cage, the hood sensor connector to the motherboard will be disconnected. Slide the hood sensor out of its cutout on the hard drive cage to remove it from the cage. The top edges of the hood sensor slide over a cutout on the hard drive cage. To replace the hood sensor, slide the edges of the hood sensor over their edges on the cutout on the cage. The hood sensor will be reconnected to the motherboard as part of the hard drive cage replacement. To remove the system fan, first remove the access panel. Lift the rear of the fan up and partially remove the system fan. Detach the system fan connector from the motherboard to fully remove the fan from the unit. The system fan has two small posts on the sides of its retaining tabs that fit into slots on the side of the unit and the thermal module. To replace the fan, first reattach the system fan connector to the motherboard. Align the fan posts into their slots and lay the fan into place. To remove the thermal module, first remove the access panel and partially remove the system fan. Loosen the 3 captured Torx head screws for the thermal module. Pull the thermal module out of the unit. Before replacing the thermal module into the system, first clean off the old thermal grease from the microprocessor. Clean the grease from the thermal module as well. Apply new thermal grease or a thermal pad to the microprocessor. Make sure there are thermal pads positioned on the bottom of the module. Align the 3 screws of the thermal module over the 3 screw holes on the motherboard. Tighten the 3 Torx head screws to secure the thermal module in the system. To remove the thermal sensor, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, and the hard drive cage. Detach the thermal sensor connector to the motherboard. Pull the connector out from between the hood sensor and speaker connector headers. Remove the sensor from the plastic cable harness at the side of the speaker. To replace the thermal sensor, place the sensor into its 2 guides on the plastic cable harness in the unit. Tuck the sensor cable down between the hood sensor and speaker connector headers on the motherboard. Reconnect the thermal sensor to the motherboard. To replace a system memory, first remove the access panel and the system fan. Next, gently pull out on the retaining lever located on each side of the SO-DIMM memory module. The module will pop up from its socket. Pull the module out of the socket. There is a small notch on one side of each SO-DIMM memory module that aligns over a small tab in each SO-DIMM socket on the motherboard. To replace an SO-DIMM memory module, angle the module to about 30 degrees, engaging the notch into its socket tab. Press the module down into place until the retaining levers snap into position over the sides of the module. The wireless LAN board and antennas should be replaced together as a unit. To remove the wireless LAN board and antennas, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, the hard drive cage, the system fan, and the thermal module. Carefully snap off the antenna connectors from the wireless LAN board. Detach the Phillips No. 1 screw, securing the wireless LAN board in place. The board will pop up. Remove the board. Remove the motherboard assembly from the unit. Untape and remove the front wireless antenna cable from the cable guides on the bottom of the chassis. There is a hooked tab securing the front antenna to the chassis. Press down on the tab to release the antenna and pull the antenna cable out the front of the unit. Untape and remove the rear antenna from its cable guides on the bottom of the chassis. Remove the rear antenna cover by squeezing on the bottom tab, securing the cover, and releasing the cover. There is a hooked tab securing the rear wireless antenna to the chassis. Press down on the tab to release the antenna, and pull the antenna cable out through its access hole at the rear of the unit. The rear antenna has a hooked tab and two small locator pins. That fit over an edge and into two small holes on the unit. To replace the rear antenna, feed the antenna cable back in through its access hole, then press the hooked tab and pins into place. The cover for the rear antenna has a hooked tab at the top and the bottom edges that fit into small slots on the rear of the unit. To replace the rear antenna cover, hook the top tab into its slot, then press the bottom tab into place. Replace the rear antenna into its cable guides on the bottom of the unit, and tape it down. The front antenna also has a hooked tab and 2 locator pins that fit over an edge and into small holes on the front of the unit. To replace the front antenna, feed the antenna cable in back through its access hole, then press the hooked tab and pins into place. Secure the front antenna into its cable guides. And tape it down to the bottom of the chassis. Replace the motherboard assembly into the unit. The wireless LAN board has a notch near one of the side edges that aligns over a key in its motherboard socket. To replace the wireless LAN board, angle the board into its motherboard socket at a 30-degree angle and press down. Hold it down while replacing the screw. Reattach the antenna connectors to the board. The antenna connectors are labeled 1 and 2 and should be connected to the corresponding 1 and 2 labeled ports on the wireless LAN board. To remove the speaker, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, and the hard drive cage. Detach the speaker connector to the motherboard. Pull out the small plastic pin at the corner of the speaker bracket using fingernails or another fine flathead tool. Slide the speaker up and remove it from the unit. There is a small hole on the speaker for the pin that aligns with a small hole on the bracket inside the unit that holds the speaker. To replace the speaker, slide the speaker into the bracket until the pin holes align. Replace the small plastic pin into the pin holes. Replace the speaker connector to the motherboard. To remove the CPU, first remove the access panel. Partially remove the system fan and remove the thermal module. Next, swing up the load lever from the CPU socket and pull it back. Carefully pull the microprocessor off of the motherboard. To replace the CPU, first identify pin 1 position on the microprocessor by noting the yellow mark on the corner of the chip assembly. Identify pin 1 on the socket by the triangular mark on the corner of the socket. Align the assembly to pin 1 on the motherboard when replacing the CPU into its socket. Swing the load lever down after installing the CPU to lock it in place. CMOS factory settings should be restored as a first step before replacing the system motherboard. To restore CMOS factory settings, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, and partially remove the hard drive cage. Remove the battery from the motherboard. Wait 30 seconds. Replace the battery to the motherboard. CMOS factory settings are now reset. Note that you will now need to enter System BIOS and reset the clock in BIOS after this procedure. To remove the motherboard, first remove the access panel, the hard drive, the hard drive cage assembly, the wireless LAN board, the system fan, system memory, the thermal module, the CPU, and the hard drive cable. Pull off the housing for the front LEDs. Detach the speaker and thermal sensor connectors from the motherboard. Detach the 4 Torx head screws that secure the motherboard to the chassis. Tip up the front edge of the motherboard and remove the motherboard from the unit. If replacing the motherboard, remove the rear I/O daughter card if installed in the unit. To do so, detach the 2 Phillips No. 1 screws securing the daughter card to the motherboard. Pull the daughter card off of the motherboard. Place the motherboard in an anti-static bag. To install a new motherboard, first install the rear daughter card on the motherboard if one is present in the unit. Press the connector edge of the daughter card against its motherboard connector header. Secure the daughter card with 2 Phillips No. 1 screws. Carefully tip the back edge connectors of the motherboard into their ports on the chassis and lay the motherboard into place. Secure the motherboard to the chassis with 4 Torx head screws. Replace the speaker and thermal sensor connectors to the motherboard. The front LED housing has a plastic arm that fits over a post on the motherboard. Place the housing back over the post and the LEDs.